Hey guys, it's Eric here. It's like this. A couple of weeks ago, I think, before the friggin' heat wave almost killed me, or so to speak, I uploaded a video on Mutant Chronicles where I read the introductory where I read the introductory text from the core rulebook from the first edition. And I promised then that I was going to talk about the game a little bit more, and I'm going to do that now. I'm going to start this episode off as the beginning of a series where I'm going to talk about Mutant Chronicles, which was an important part of my role-playing game career that began somewhere in like 19... I can't remember when I started Mutant Chronicles, but I think it was quite soon after it was released, like 1993, which was the release of the first edition, or 1994, I can't remember 100% here. I started playing role-playing games the first time back in, I believe it was 1989 or 1990, and that was Dragons and Demons, the Swedish version of a fantasy role-playing game that we had. I have all the books except for the second edition for Mutant Chronicles in Swedish. I'm sorry, you guys will have to see the Swedish editions. And I have here the first edition rulebook, and it's, as you guys can see, it's not feeling too well. We had to put it into a folder like this because it was a soft cover book, and the binding broke within like 2 weeks. So we had to get this one and like glue on top and everything. I've never found an intact version of the first edition. It was horribly bound. And I believe that the game company learned from the mistake of using such cheap freaking printers. Whoever did the printing, I don't know. This is also a product from Äventyrsspel, or Target Games. It was released in 1993, and as you might remember from my recordings of talking about Mutant, you had Mutant Space, and then it kind of branched off. The natural development of Mutant then was to become Mutant Chronicles, because Mutant stopped being produced after that. And then later on became Mutant Heirs of Doom, far, far later after Target Games stopped existing as a company. But that's unimportant. So, you might have listened to the first things I was reading about. This is, as it says, a techno-fantasy role-playing game. It's set far in the future. Exactly how far is not really known, at least not in the core rulebook. There's no year mentioned in the core rulebook. That's something that was mentioned in one of the Syncadu's companion newsletters that you could buy. They became more like something really weird at the end. So let's get into the first edition. Let's talk about the basics. I'm going to talk about the rules to begin with, then we'll talk about the world a little bit more. So, the game, I'm going to keep it like here on my chest right now. I'm going also to talk a little bit about the differences between the editions. But that's going to be mostly the fluff and not the crunch differences. Just a little bit. I'm going to lift a little bit about the rules differences. So, like most of the games from this company way back when, they moved from the BRP base, which was using a D100, they went over to using a D20, roll lower than whichever skill level value you have, and it continues in this one. So I'm going to take a character sheet here. I'm sorry, it's in Swedish. I need to also change the camera angle because I see it's mirrored right now, so you have to read backwards, but it's going to be the right way around whenever I release the video. And I'm trying to make sure that I have the light right over here. See? My hand disappears. I need to get a better light. But we have the character attributes right up here, which are strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, mental strength or wisdom, and charisma, called personality here. Standard values 3 to 18, rolled with 3d6s. And you have the basic stuff here, like character data, like the name, the game, the gamer's name, profession. Then you have social status. This is something that has been very common in Swedish role-playing games. I don't know how it is with foreign role-playing games, that there has been like a social standing or a social status indicator to point out which level your character starts from within society. In this one, it's pointed out in a level of 1 to 10. 1 being like you're basically a homeless person, 10 you're a multi-millionaire. So you start out with a value between 1 and 10, and that's like, this is your family's value when you start. You come from this social strata to begin with. Sometimes it can give you a positive thing, sometimes not, and your profession actually decides how your social standing can go up and down. It's about your income and everything else like that. Then it's age, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the age a little bit further on. Then you have like the basic stuff like your height. Height is no, it used to be like they had you have your height and your weight. In the other versions of the game, there was a characteristic, an attribute called size, which decided your height and your weight. But here it was like, well, you can decide if you want to be 150 centimeters tall and have a waistline of 150 centimeters if you want to. And stuff like that. So then like hair colors, hairstyle, eyes, eye color, if you have any scars, if you have a nickname, where you're born. But then came something that made me fall in love with this game. And it's farther down here, and it's linked to age, and it's backgrounds and events. This was something completely new to me when this game came out, is that your character is not like in the other games where you start at the age of like minimum age for your race, and then you add like a D10, D6 or whatever. This is your starting age. No. That didn't happen here. That's what was so fucking cool. What you did was that every character started at the age of 16. That's it. Everybody started at the age of 16. And then you did the character generation. Every generation step were done in increments of 2 years. So you start out by rolling on a table. I'll see if I can find it here. So I'll just find it here in the big book. I'm sorry about the reflections and stuff here. But then you have here childhood events and special events. When your character turned 16, you roll like 3 events that happened during your childhood, which has defined your character. You roll 2 d20s, rolling the higher up on the table. You know, random tables are not always that good, but higher rolls would be good benefits. Lower rolls would be something negative. So I'm going to give you an example. 2 d20s. So if you rolled 2, like 1 and 1, you get the childhood event handicapped. You had an accident that almost made you an invalid. Your movement capabilities are always checked on the row above your normal combat values. For example, 3, a wuss. You were broken down in your childhood and has become a permanent coward. 5, slow. Your defensive bonus and perception bonuses are lowered. There's even here that you could have committed a crime, which means that you were imprisoned. Increase your age and increase these stats, lower these stats. Also, you also gain criminal past, which means that certain professions are not open to you anymore. Things like that. Let's go for the higher ones. 38, gifted student. You learned twice as much as normal during your childhood. Repeat your childhood education. So you get like double the starting points. Generally gifted. Add +3 to any attribute you want. 40, you were commander trained. You were chosen to be part of the special forces and have studied to become a secret commando or something equivalent at a military academy. Add +2 to all your attributes, and you also get certain expertises and so forth. +5 to charisma, +2 to social status, and so forth. Which means this game is kind of like a power gaming. It's really power gaming. I mean, the point of Mutant Chronicles is that it's cinematic, and it's a cinematic combat, more or less. It's cinematic, heroic, epic. So power gaming is, and was, which I'll talk about later too, probably when I discuss the other Splat books, was encouraged because there was a serious power creep going on. So you roll your 3d6s, you get the values that you need, and you put it out on the different attributes. You have your childhood education, which means that depending on your intelligence, you get a certain amount of like XP to spend on your skills. Your age is also affected seriously. Most people in this game don't survive very long. Well, from natural causes, almost no one, it seems, survives to old age. But natural causes start to affect you seriously after the age of 27. Most people, I believe, I can't remember if it was like 45. Yeah, it says here, the medium life expectancy in this world is about 40 years old, which means that around 40 to 45, even 35, you actually get a pension. It doesn't exist in this world, but you would retire at the age of 35 to 40, because after that you're basically going to die due to all pollution and other shit that's happening in this world. But it doesn't happen to everyone, because there's like, retirement is basically death in this game. It's very violent. And it's very, the game, as I said, it was epic, heroic, and it focuses, due to that, it focuses a lot on weaponry and action and investigation. So, I mean, it's heavily influenced. This is the first time, for example, that I got in touch with the art of Paul Bonner. It's not that apparent here on the front, but big shoulder pads, you know, like from very Warhammer 40k inspired stuff going on here. Okay, so your character starts out at the age of 16. Not everyone, but most people choose then to... We have here all the different professions. I'm going to sit over here, and my face will be so white and yellowish that it will disappear from picture. So here are all the professions in the starting book. It's like 4 pages. Most people start out as a student, just to, you know, get some basic stuff going, because some professions, there are like prerequisites, like military and police. A private has to have a strength, constitution and dexterity of minimum 9. If you want to be an officer, you have to be less than 25 years old and have gone at least 2 years at the military academy. It just says here, Finnish military academy. It never said how much it has to be. To be a student, you have to have an intelligence of 7, at least social standing 4, and be maximum 25 years old. So that's how it is. The different careers that you could start out with was military, police, the media, as a freelancer or as a journalist, science and construction, to be a researcher or a mechanic. You could work in security or as an investigator. You could work within administration, economy, and law, be a professional criminal. Then we have the student, and then you have the regular worker. those were the different things that were available as starting careers. So you would then get your character there and decide, like, I'd like to be, let's just for fun say that, I'd like my character to start out as a police officer. Right. Then we have to check if he passes his, here we go, the background, the procedure is right here. So, do you fulfill the background or the prerequisites for the job? Yeah, then we can continue. Make an intelligence and charisma roll to see if you actually pass the interview. If you succeed, you become hired and you do all the stuff there. If you fail, you will become unemployed. You can't choose any other job. You will spend 2 years unemployed, and these are the things that you gain during that time. If you are employed, you will gain all the things here. It's very, very small. I'm not sure I can show it closer up. You have the different here, privates, officers, and then you have different levels. Oh, sorry about this. Different expertise areas. So you gain a certain amount of XP to be spent on skills within that specific expertise area. Then how your social standing is affected and how much your charisma is increased for 2 years. So that's how you did it. Most people finished their character, and then of course you roll like 2 special events. And then most people continued to create their career until the character was about 24 to 26 years old. And then they usually lose their jobs and they become adventurers. And that's how you do it. That's how you create the character. Then there's a lot of mathematics, how to get the different bonuses and the health points, and then there's the rules here about the different things. And then we come to the most important thing. I'm going to talk about the skills soon. But then we come to this. This was the most wonderful thing back then. Look at these beautiful renditions of the different weapons. It's incredible to think about it. Most role-playing games didn't have these nice drawings at all of weaponry at the time, as I remember it. It was usually like a shadow or something like that, or very simplistic. Here you had a specific, unique design for each corporation. So you have all of them here. Just going through even. So there you go. This is damn heavy because of the folder. I'm going to put it down. So how did your character get better at stuff? So let's go back to the character sheet. Here we go. Then you have so you fill out here all the events that happen, all the careers you do, and if you're an officer, or if you were a sergeant, or whatever you did. And then you have information here like your appearance, friends and family, and such stuff, how your character acts, and a short like history. And then you have like combat information here. But on the back, here's the interesting thing. There are areas of expertise for each character. So you have, it was like combat, close combat, range combat, communication, coordination, technology, and the special ones. So you got XPs for each of the different categories, and then you had like free ones that you could put out wherever you wanted. So 1 XP was like 1 tick in the box. Each tick, and I'm going to put it even closer. Hopefully you can see here that each tick is like +3, +5, plus, what was it? 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. Sorry for the sound. Then it's based, each skill is based on 1 attribute. So you have like the base form here, and then the modifier that you gain from here, due to spending the different ticks. And just calculating them together, you got all the stuff there. But here at the bottom, you have the special with dodging and perception. And they were unique, but there was also like the art if you were playing from a character from the Brotherhood. Whew, I'm getting all hot here. So the difference is that in the second edition, they were streamlining everything. The game is very similar in the second edition. The difference is that they develop a little bit more the intrigues between the corporations and the story, the fluff, a little bit more. But they change the character creation a little bit. Instead of this freehand that I love, and which really roped me into creating the character, that like you roll these 2d20s and your character kind of grows during the time of character generation. Usually at random, but you can still use it to create a character you want in whichever way you want it to be. Instead of like this random generation by rolling dice and you might not get what you want in the end, they created something called archetypes that you chose instead. So the archetype defined the way you wanted your character to be. So I want to play this badass military veteran. All right, here's the archetype, and here's the rules for creating the character within this archetype. Kind of a good idea, but I don't like it because it's a little bit, you get stuck. Because I like the idea that my character started over here and then developed and evolved into this guy over here. It wasn't really what I expected him to be, or her, but I like it because I had control over that. But that's more of a personal opinion rather than anything else. The rules are basically the same, and the difference between the books are also the layout. As you see here, this is very standard, you know, the black and white. Actually quite nicely drawn images, but there were also, see if I can find it here, but they also added some of Paul Bonner's art. Here's from Imperial. Some people might recognize these. I mean, it was expensive to print books with this much detail and everything. I mean, these are from oil paintings by Bonner. He's fucking amazing when it comes to these. And this is a photograph, actually. Believe it or not, that's a guy. So most of it is like black and white, but the second edition has more, a different design with like this classic 4-color print. Most of it is in this grayish tone, but they have way more. But the illustrations, I'm going to put up some of them here probably over the picture. They aren't Bonner's beautiful oil paintings. They are the most disgusting comic book style images from the 90s. I hate them. I've always hated them. Some of the pictures are from the Mutant Chronicles comic book, and some were hand-drawn, and they're... blah. Never mind that. Again, personal opinion. I just felt that they are so far off the style that Mutant Chronicles should be, in my opinion. This is supposed to be, in my opinion, a dark, pulpy, diesel punk noir setting with a lot of epicness and heroism, not a fucking comic book. But again, my personal opinion. The game was stopped produced when Äventyrsspel and Target Games ceased to exist at the end of the 90s. So it disappeared, and not until, I think it was in 2006, a Swedish game developer called COG. Can't remember what it stood for, but I was part of... I was kind of like an outsider giving feedback to the development team, and they were trying to like remake their own version of Mutant Chronicles for a 3rd edition. They failed miserably because they couldn't deliver anything within the time they had rented the license. So it went back to Paradox, and Paradox lent the license or rented the license to Modiphius, which they made a Kickstarter for Mutant Chronicles the 3rd edition, and they released the core rulebook. I think it was back in 2015, might have been 16, I'm not 100% sure now, I can't remember, followed by all the rest of the different expansion books, including Dark Eden. Dark Eden was something that didn't show up in the main run of Mutant Chronicles. Never did. It showed up due to the collectible card game and Warzone. It was mostly Warzone because they made the Warzone game, you had the corporations and everything, and they developed also further on Dark Eden, like the different forces of Earth and so on. Modiphius did a really, in my opinion, a really brilliant job by adding everything from. They took most of the stuff from the second edition, I have to say. First edition is a little bit light on some of the information. It makes the foundation for the game. They took most of the intrigues and stuff from second edition, and they worked on it and made the third. And to be honest, I read most of the third, and I love it. It's really well done. I do miss the first edition rules for character generation. That's my opinion. I feel that but you know, like I love this. I have to hug it a little bit. I just loved it. For me, it's perfect, but I know it lacks a lot. It has a lot of problems and everything. What they did in third edition, I should probably pop up if I lean over here, maybe I can put in a character sheet here. So they have different attributes, but it's more of a point-based system where you buy which corporation you're going to begin with, or you can do everything random if you want to, but you can also use a point-based system. So everything is random. Here you chose which corporation you wanted to belong to, and so on. Let's see now. I don't think the events are still there, but they have been streamlined a little bit more. The skills are still there, so you have your attributes are on a level of 1 to 12, I think it was, or 10. So it's a point-based system where you start on 5 and then you increase them. I think 8 is the standard for every human, and then you get again the XP or creation points from your professions. Again with the different increments, but they did, instead of 2 years, I think it was randomized from 1 year plus 1d6 or 1d3 that develops everything. You have the main career, and then you have the specialized career, so you don't move around too much. They still have the interview stage where you roll to succeed to get accepted into the specific profession. All that really great in a way, but for me I still like this version of the character generation more. But Modiphius did a really good job with theirs, and it's more, I would have to say, it's more stable. The difference they have is that, again, it goes on a d20 base. The difference is that the third edition uses 2 d20s. So instead of rolling 1 below your skill level, you roll 2 dice, and if one of them is below, you succeed. To gain also a critical success or a critical failure depends on how much, I think it's you have expertise and then you have focus. If you have a focus on the skill, if you have one focus, you do a critical success when you roll a 1. If you have 2, it's a 1 or 2, and so on. So that's also a smart way. This one, the original one, the first and second edition, was if you roll a 1, it's a critical success. If you roll a 20, it's a critical failure. That's it. No discussion. Generally speaking, they went with 10% of your skill value is the critical success and the critical failure. Oh, sorry. So, well, as I said, Modiphius did a lot of good. They made lots of stuff really, really well, but they missed a lot of things too. For example, when you created a career, when your character was 16 or 18 when they got into a career, not everyone had it, but there was a chance of, in many of the Splat books and even in this one, for example, if you're in the military or if you're in the in the police force or anything like that, there was a chance for you to do so well, so successful, such high successes when you did like your re-hiring procedure after 2 years, that you were promoted. So you could actually climb in the career. Each and every corporation had it too, except for Cybertronic, because they were special. I'm going to talk more about them in another episode. But it made it possible for your character to... You were more invested in your character. So you started out like a grunt, and you, by the end of like 8 years of military service in a special forces unit, you had a sergeant. Or you actually might have had somebody who really fucked up and became a war criminal, who was expelled, dishonorably discharged, and became an alcoholic. Modifius doesn't really open for that. It's also a little bit, like squared. This one is more of a circle when it comes to the character generation. So there we go. I think that, one more thing that is a difference between first and second and the third edition is that whenever you use money in this one, you have seriously calculated, and also the ammunition is like you have 100 bullets. You have to remove 1 bullet whenever you fire your weapon, or if you use full automatic. Remember to keep track of weapon and money. While they made it a little bit easier in the third edition. For example, money is counted more in like resources. So whenever you buy something, it's like it costs these many resources. Then you just remove that amount of resources. Also for the fact that it counts as, for example, if you use bribes or if you're bartering on the black market or anything like that. So it could be cash, it could be stocks, it could be that I have my grandfather's golden clock. I'll exchange that for this medication. While here it was like you had to buy stuff with money, and you had to... that's it. So if you wanted to like bribe someone, you had to go and use your money to buy whichever thing you wanted to use, then give it as a bribe, or like here's the cash, go away. Ammunition wise, as I said, it was like fire, remove a bullet. They have, instead of like your clip or your magazine, it contains these many shots. And I have to say third edition is even more cinematic because it uses a dice pool. Far more than any other edition, and the other editions didn't have it, so you had a dice pool. I wanted to succeed even more well. I spend what's it called, like dark symmetry points, I think, and I get 4 dice to roll. My first is a success, and I have 2 further successes, which means that I get a movement of successes, which means that I did it even faster and better and so on, which is kind of popular right now in the role-playing game community. Is very common in the Free League and Modifius games, which kind of makes the player more invested, but also the game master becomes more invested because whenever he gains dark symmetry points, it's his. It becomes like he gains favor to use more, to create more problems for the players and so on, instead of being the almighty creature. The game master is more rules bound in that example, while in these editions he's not. He's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want because I'm the game master. What was I talking about? So yeah, that's the differences between first, second and third in a way. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the fluff, and I have to say now, spoiler warning. Well, for first and second, there's not that many spoilers, but for anyone who wants to play the third edition, beware, because I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So, the main rulebook. Let's go back here. Here we go. Here's like everything is in the book. And as I said, I read the beginning in the previous episode, which is like the first pages here. It looks like a comic book. I think that's what they went for, but as I said, I don't like the idea of it being a comic. It's not a comic book, or if it is, it's a freaking dark one. So, what's happened? This is like the only beginning fluff information you gain. Like, what happened before the game started. Like, this is it. This is the prehistory. This is the rest. This is the current history. So what's happening is that Earth has changed. There grew during the time like wars and stuff. Corporations became more and more powerful. 4 grand corporations grew out of all of this, and they became so big they became mega corporations. They became states unto themselves. And there were 3 main corporations to begin with, like Capital, Bauhaus, and Mishima. They were the ones who had the money to go further out into the solar system. And the last one was a conglomeration of several minor companies that got together and created a megacorp called Imperial. So as I read there, it started with Luna. Luna was the first celestial body that was colonized by humanity. And all the different organizations have some kind of like quarters or headquarters, districts in the city that they control in one way or another. The different companies, Capital, it never really says where these like ethnic groups or where they might have hailed from originally, but it was kind of easy to figure out where they came from. I mean, Capital with all the... Let's see, I'm going to go for the imagery for Capital. Let's see now. Let's see. We'll have to refer to Paul Bonner once more. Is he here? If you look at the icon for Capital, you can see like this is so American. It's incredible. And look at Mitch Hunter. He looks like some fucking movie star from Hollywood. And the names like Mitch Hunter and Johnson and Big Bob Watts and so forth. It was kind of obvious that Capital, even though the Capital also says it all, they were the Americans, like the American continent. So both North and South America and Mesoamerica and Canada and all those people became one nation, Capital. And they are super capitalistic, very American, super consumers, mass producers, lots of media and communications, lots of movies, and so on. And I have to say that the world of Mutant Chronicles would be about like post-World War II up to 1960s in the style and mentality of all the people. So we have Capital, who was like the greatest corporation. It's still the largest corporation. It went to Luna. I think they were the first to start colonizing Luna. And they also colonized Mars. Mars became their planet. They also had different settlements and colonies on other planets too, but Mars is like their heartland. Except for Luna, of course. Capital is ruled by the executive board and the president. So they have... Because each Capitolian citizen gets 1 share in the company. Whenever they're born, they get like 1 full share, and that's like their citizenship. That's more developed in the 3rd edition. In this one, it's not. It's just mentioned in the Capital source book. Let's see now, Capital. I'll just hold this one here. My arm is going to get really seriously tired. They have the skyscraper on Luna, where many of their ambassadors and emissaries work, but the government is located in San Dorado, which is the capital city on Mars. The current president, also this is a difference too. The 1st and 2nd edition took place in one era, which is, I think it's called like the Dark Symmetry era. No, Dark Legion era. The 3rd edition has a difference there because it exists in 3 eras. You can choose whichever era you want to. Dark Symmetry, which is before the Dark Legion arrives. The Dark Legion era, which is this one, and the Dark Eden era. The president is Charles W. Colding, who runs the company. He is the head of Colding Arms. There are like families who are the people who run the company. and it's even over here. I'm not sure. I'll just move it over here a little bit closer. Here are the main shareholders of the company. You have to remember that this is, the company, the corporation. It says here, for example, the largest shareholders are the Abrams, Gibbs, Colding, and Hendricks, who each have 5.2% shares of the company. It doesn't sound much, does it? But when you think about it, this is a mega corporation. It contains probably over 1 billion people. We're talking about billions times billions times billions of dollars, or whichever currency you want to use, that are moved. And if you have 5% of the billions upon billions times billions times billions of monies, that's fucking a lot. And they have their own currency called the capital dollar. Also a hint. As you know, we're moving on to the next corporation, which is the second largest one. Here we go. If you guys played Siege of the Citadel or knows anything about it, Mitch Hunter and this guy, we had a little bit problem in the beginning. We're not 100% sure who this guy was, because he appeared in Siege of the Citadel and he was called Big Bob Watts. But, one moment, I'm just going to pick up another book here, the Capital Source book, because this is a fun story thing. Here we go, here's the cover, again, Paul Bonner. We have Mitch Hunter here, and here's another dude, who is called Big Bob Watts. So we were a bit confused there, like, who is Big Bob? Is he this pastily white dude? No, he's not pasty, but this white dude here over here, or this black guy? It turns out that they retconned it, so this is Big Bob Watts from now on, and I think this guy is called Kowalski. I think that's what he's called now. Not 100% sure there. Okay, so following up on that, we have Bauhaus. Again, from Siege of the Citadel, and we have Valerie Duvall up there, the lady, and Max Steiner down here, the Venusian Ranger and the Étoile Montante. Bauhaus is a stereotypical... Everything is stereotyped in this game when you think about it. Bauhaus is what I would call... They would be like Central Europe and Eastern Europe and Northern Europe united into one nation. They are predominantly German. But we have Valerie Duvall, who is of the Étoile Montante, which is more like French. The Étoile Montante is like Death Riders or the Lethal Riders or something. No. Yeah, I think it's also like Lethal Riders or something. My French is a bit rusty. They are predominantly Germanic and Slavonic. It's run by four... It has a completely different system. The capital is democracy through a corporation or a business. While Bauhaus is based on nobility and family. I have to back off a little bit here. Bauhaus had settlers, I think they call them actually settlers or pioneers, that settled and colonized Venus. As I said, everybody's on Luna, but they went for Venus as their home planet. And the main capital on Venus is Heimburg. So, I mean, it's like, these are Germans, very obviously. The aesthetics are very Germanic or German styled, really clean, high quality, all that stuff. They're run by four, I would call them Grand Dukes. I'm not 100% sure what they are called in the English version, but they are four families. There are the Romanovs, the Richthausen, and the Bernheim and the Saglieli. So we have here Russian, German, and Italian. Oh my god. The Bauhausian society is just touched upon a little bit in the main rule in the core book. Is based on that society is very locked. If you get social standing 4, you're probably never going to leave the social status 4. You're there, you're stuck in you're a cog. And even their main icon or the banner is the cog. I'm going to talk more about that in the Bauhaus episode. They are super well, it's like their production is lower, but they work in really, really high quality. They have like general free healthcare and stuff like that. They're, again, fewer military forces, but they are better trained. Things like, well, that's it. They are very, very. They have slaves, for example, or thralls, but it's the same as a slave, all the way up to the high nobility. So, like, one is a thrall, then you have like the middle class, then you have from 7 to 9, you have the nobility, and 10th you're part of the grand ducal families. Venus in this setting is a jungle planet, like in the old days. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Their main their currency is called the Heimberg Ducat, a golden coin. Okay, moving on. Next corporation is Mishima. They are neo-samurais. It never really explained in the core rulebook originally how that came to be. That's actually explained in the 3rd edition. I'll get to it because I haven't read the 3rd edition source book. I've only read the core book, where they explain it far more. And there is like it starts out as a corporational. These are the Asians, mostly Japanese, Chinese groupings. It starts out as a how should I say, a corporate philosophy, and when things go to shit in the 3rd edition world, the samurai are like the managers who start to become police officers who control everything. They are also based on ancient nobility. The difference is that in Bauhaus, if you are very, very good, you will be given maybe a noblemanship, or you will be knighted into nobility through your successes. In Mishima, never happens. More honor, tradition, very like Yojimbo and the Seven Samurais and all that stuff. They believe in seppuku too in this version. So they are samurais in power armor. They can also, which is not in the main book here, it came in the expansion book, they can learn magic called ki, or chi, perhaps in English. It's spelled K-I, so ki. They have specific key powers. That sounded really stupid when I said it. The corporation is led by the Emperor, the grand old Emperor Mishima himself. Below him there are the 3 princesses, who all have their own like corporate responsibilities. Let's see now. The grand prince, or whatever, the Prince of Fire, Governor of Luna, the Ambassador of Mishima, the Emperor of 1,000 Suns, the High All Father, are some of the titles that Mishima himself has. He is marginalized. It's not really mentioned here that much. It actually says here, even though his formal power is small, he has quite a lot of influence over his people. So, I mean, he's like the emperor of China or Japan, if we look back in history. Since he is very intelligent and an old man, a lot of people turn to him for advice. Even the cardinal usually turns to the Emperor Mishima to seek advice. Below him, Sorry, I forgot. The home of Mishima is Mercury, where they live in the caverns beneath the surface. I mean, Mercury, you can't get up on the surface, or you'll burn to death because it's so close to the sun. So underneath, Mishima himself, he lives in Luna. That's his area of control, but he has a great influence over the people. While Moya, the Prince of Earth, is the governor of Mercury. That's his home. He is the one next in line whenever Mishima himself dies. Then Maru, the Prince of Water, has his domains on Venus, while the Princess Mariko, the Princess of Air, has her colony on Mars. The three siblings don't like each other, so they fight each other in all ways possible. So whenever Mishima, the Grand Prince Mishima, dies, there's probably going to be a big civil war within the company. There we go. Right. So the fourth corporation is Imperial. Also quite easy to figure out who they are. They are the British, the colonial British, the Victorian British. Even their leader is called Victoria. They are very based on like Scottish structure. They are the clans, the clansmen who have united, and they have an empire. They don't have their own planet. They live mostly in the asteroid belt. The largest asteroid, I believe, I can't remember 100%. I think it's actually called... let's see if it says so here. I'm not 100% sure. They have their palace. The Reading Palace is located on Luna, and I believe that was a bit retconned later on. Yeah, I believe that was retconned later in the source book, because they have like the Victoria, I think it's actually called Victoria, the asteroid Victoria, where their main capital is. So as I said, it was a conglomeration of several families, which is noted out more in the source book. So each of the families are their own companies, and they have sub-families and so on, the different clans. The ruling clan, the president of the company, is the Serenity, is what it's called. This is based a lot on the British society, or the British government. You have the House of Commons, you have the House of Lords, and you have the Queen or King, which is called the Serenity. The current Serenity is somebody called Victoria, and she is from the clan Paladine. The Paladine clan. Before that, there were the three main clans which were in a constant civil war. There were the Bartholomews, the Murdochs, and the Maguires. Imperial strategy is that they are very expansionist. They even have a group called the Conquistadors, who are the ones who go out and get shit and colonize and stuff like that. Which means, mostly when it comes to... they also do, as they call it, hostile takeovers. Today, when a hostile takeovers happen, it's like you buy up quickly and you fire all the people and you get your own people into the new company. Imperial hostile takeover is more or less that, well, we sent in the military to this place. This colony looks really good, so let's get all the military over here, kill everybody, kick them out, and now it's ours. Thank you. That's how they do it. They are merchants and travelers. They have the most elite fighters, the Blood Parades, for example. They also have the Wolfbanes, which are like the crazy Viking Highlander groups, which is really fun. Currency is called the Imperial Sterling. They are everywhere. They even have their own secret police called the ISC, and so on. So we had the four corporations that went out into the solar system and started. Everything was, well, good and for a set value of good, but they were getting along, at least Until the Darkness Arrived. I'm going to talk about the darkness further on here, which will probably be in the next episode. We have the basis here. I've been talking for almost an hour. I'm going to continue right now, but this will be the end of the episode for now. So join me next time when I talk about the fifth corporation, fifth and the sixth corporation, the Brotherhood and the Cartel. And if I have time, I'm going to talk about the Darkness. Hopefully I'll have time to do all of that in the next episode. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you liked what you saw, do leave a like and a comment. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you guys later.